I'm 15, so like kids around my age, I know a lot of non-virgins, and some people, like I know a girl that got pregnant in 7th grade, so she had to, have an abortion. So that's like a big thing with kids my age.
My mom actually had a baby when she was 18, when she was 17. She did not have an abortion. She put it up for adoption. She said it was a better decision for herself, but I was thinking if I ever got pregnant, I would get an abortion, so I understand where she came from then.
How about the issue with abortion?
I'm against abortion.
You're really against it. You answered that right away. How come?
Because it's not right to take away an innocent life.
Oh, I think like if you get raped or something, and like it wasn't expected, then yeah, you could have an abortion. But like if like you keep having sex and you just say, oh well, I can have an abortion, then I'm not for all that.
That's up to you. I mean that's your body. I mean, if you're not ready to be a mother, why have a child? That's what I think. I mean, of course, with me, I want to give my child as much, if not more, than what my parents gave me. So if I'm too young to have a child, then I'd probably abort it.
Me personally, I wouldn't get one, but I will give that person a choice. I won't take that choice away from anybody.
I think it's wrong because if you were smart enough to get into a bed with a guy, you should be smart enough to take your responsibilities on yourself and on your child. And you shouldn't abort a baby because it's not his fault that you made him,
It's horrible because that you're like losing a life. You're giving up a life of somebody else just because you don't want to have the kid right there and you should have used protection.
I think it's like sad because you're killing someone.
I really don't know because it could depend on a lot of things, like if someone was raped or if it was a simple matter as just not wanting a child. But I guess if you go into the Bible, it's once the fetus is developed, that's life right there. That's murder if you choose to abort it.
I really don't believe in it. If somebody does it and like they have sex and then they just want to get an abortion, that's kind of wrong. They should at least put it up for adoption or something like that.
If you made it, I guess you gotta live with it.
It's killing. Thou shalt not kill.
It's easy to be against abortion, and then I've had friends who were in the situation where they weren't sure what they would do, and it became a lot more of a real issue than it was before, when I could just be like, abortion is wrong, abortion is wrong. It's definitely really personal, but I don't agree with it. I still don't agree with it. That's something that they're gonna have to live with when they make the decision, but for me, I know I couldn't do it.
Without a doubt, abortion is one of the most controversial topics of the last 20 years.
Many people have strong views, either for or against abortion.
As you can see with our opening segment, teens' views go across the board.
Some are against it, some for it, and others believe it is okay in the instance of rape.
There is no doubt where the church stands on this issue.
It follows a complete and consistent ethic of life.
Life is to be respected and protected from conception to natural death.
For God is the sole author of life. Hi everyone, I'm John.
And I'm Alicia. Today on Real Faith TV, we'll be talking about abortion.
Catherine attended the National Right to Life Convention in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and interviewed a few people for our spotlight.
We will meet two teens, Kristen and Ian, who will tell us why they believe so strongly in fighting for and standing up for life.
We will also meet Catherine's aunt, Olivia Gans, who is the director of American Victims for Life. She will tell us about the abortion she had while in college and how she got through this heartbreaking time in her life.
And we will meet two moms whose daughters both found themselves in crisis pregnancies. Their stories have different endings, but they both hope that telling their stories to teens will help save lives. Before we meet our studio guests, let's meet Kristen and Ian and find out why they feel so strongly against abortion.
I know how precious life is, given to us by our Creator. There's a proverb that goes, speak for those who cannot speak, defend those who cannot defend themselves. We are called to action as Christians. We can't stand by and watch these things happen and let them happen and know they're happening, but say, well, there's nothing we can do to change that. I believe that's wrong. You need to get out there, you need to help out, because abortion is killing thousands of unborn children. It's wrong.
With God, everything is important when it comes to human life and sincerity, because a life is a life. Whether it's in the womb, whether it's not in the womb, it doesn't matter, because God cherishes and sanctifies everything, even before they were born. We don't even own our own bodies because God owns it. He gave us life, He gave us all that we needed. So we don't have the right to even touch that, to even take that, or even to think of taking life, because it's not a responsibility, nor is it our right.
I agree with Ian that the life that God gave us is so precious that we really have no right to tamper with it.
Yeah, I agree. Research shows that young people really care about their baby, and most want to keep the child when facing a crisis pregnancy.
But many teenagers are less informed, have fewer resources, less information, and fewer people to give them support than older women.
They don't always know where to go for help.
Let's talk to our guests about this. Today we have Sarah, Bryce, Vanessa, Powell, Beth, and Catherine. So what are your feelings on abortion?
I think it's definitely wrong, because
Oh yeah.
why? Yeah, I think
That's an understatement.
Yeah, I know, and that why should you kill a life? And a lot of people don't consider, they call it a fetus, which totally takes the humanity out of the baby, but it is a life, and how can people kill it?
I think it's one of the most deceptively evil things in our society today, because they think that the people who do it don't exactly know what they're doing, and if they do, they're being pushed into it. And I don't think it's talked about half as much as it should be, because it's a political subject, so you got to shy away from it. But I think it's our society is becoming like the Nazis in the way that we're just killing people off.
Yeah, I agree with you like that. It's kind of freaky, all the capabilities that we have now to you don't like the baby that you have. Remember we talked about that before. If there's a new surgery coming out, if you could tell if your child has some mental problems when he's very early in stages of being a fetus, and you could just end that child's life just because he's not
No, now they're our society is so controlling. They're actually considering having a 3-month-old infant, calling it an extra uterine pregnancy, and you have a chance of killing your infant up to 3 months.
That's so disgusting, and I can't even imagine that people would actually consider doing something that drastic and taking an actual life so far along developed and everything like that. Even from the beginning, it's a life, and there's so many other options, things that you can do other than just terminate it.
We all make mistakes because we're only human, but if we put our trust in God when we fail, He can transform our lives into something beyond our imagination.
Olivia Gans has had that experience. Although she will always regret the decision she made to have an abortion, she hopes that her story will help other women choose life for their unborn child.
When I was in college, I was very confused about a lot of things, and I really didn't understand what the real truth behind how to find true love, and a lot of other issues like that in my life. And I fell in love with somebody, and in the course of that relationship, I got pregnant. And I thought that the only way to prove to this guy that I was worth his love would be to agree to do what he wanted me to do, which was to have an abortion. And he really said that the only way he'd stick around and still be my boyfriend was if I had an abortion, because he wasn't ready to be a baby's father. So he told me, I'll stick with you through the abortion, but I want you to do it. So I was very frightened, and I was very frightened I'd lose him. And I wasn't comfortable about having an abortion. I didn't feel that it was really a good thing for me, but I didn't want to lose him. And so when I went to the abortion providers to find out information about what to do, each one of those people told me that I was immature, selfish, and stupid not to realize that he was right and I was wrong, that the smart thing to do was to have an abortion. So I know that women get into a lot of very high pressure situations where people do a lot of arm twisting. And I'm not saying that all guys are bad guys. My boyfriend was a bit of a coward. The people who talked to me at the abortion facility, they were cruel because they didn't care about what was happening in my life or my heart. They were going to make money off of my abortion, and that's all they were worried about. And I can tell you that I've spent the rest of my life wishing that I had made a different decision. But one of the things that came out of that decision is that I know that God can take any bad, painful, scary, terrifying situation in your life, and even the mistakes that you make something good come out of it. Because I've been working with the pro-life movement since 1982, 1 year after I had my abortion, and I have found a great deal of love, a great deal of understanding, and a lot of forgiveness, mostly from the God that made me and my baby. And I now know that there are other women that I can help by telling the truth about what happens inside an abortion facility.
I think it is very unfortunate that sometimes in society there are pressures from our family and from our friends even to have an abortion and not to protect life. And I think that in those cases it's very important for the people around us to be supportive and to understand and to just protect what they know is right.
Yeah, I also love how she took a negative, such a bad time in her life and turned it into one of the most positive things that she can do. She's helping other people from her negative experience, and I think that we should all do that.
So do you guys know anyone that's had a crisis pregnancy or maybe even had an abortion?
I know someone who has had an abortion. I'd rather not say who, but I personally will never understand how she could have made the decision to do that. But at the same time, I still love this person, and she's still someone who's close to me, because if God is forgiving, and if you make the mistake and you take a life away and have an abortion, He is going to forgive you. So likewise, I should do the same. I don't agree with her decision, but she made that decision and I forgive her for it, and I still love her, but I don't think I'll ever understand it. And I also know a girl who was in my high school this past year. It was her senior year, and at the very end of the year she got pregnant, and she did not have an abortion. I remember at the graduation her walking up to get her diploma, and you couldn't see that she was pregnant because she had the gown on for graduation, but everybody knew. And I just think that took so much courage on her part to stand up there in front of the entire high school and have everyone know that about her, and I give her a lot of credit for not taking the life of that child away.
Yeah, it always makes me feel good when you see a teenage girl that, she knows she made a mistake, and she's not going to get an abortion. She's pregnant. She's going to keep the baby, The baby didn't ask to be born, you know what I mean? It just, God, through the love of, through His grace and through His love, made the baby be conceived. And who are we to take away its life? And it's great that the girl has that much courage to walk around and keep the baby. And it might be tough for the first few years or for her whole life, but you know what? She's doing the right thing, and God's going to be happy with her, and she's going to live in eternal paradise, and it's going to be great. I can't even fathom taking away someone's life like that. I would just face the music.
And there's adoption. Sorry. And adoption is always an option. You know, if you carry the baby to term, if you are a teenager and you want to, go to college and have a life, well then give the baby up for adoption. You don't have to kill it.
Yeah, adoption is such a great alternative to abortion. At least the baby will grow up and have a great life instead of not having a life at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes I just wonder how these doctors could sleep at night. What kind of conscience they have for just killing all these babies just for the money. They tell all these women that, oh, we care for you, but it's just for the money.
You wonder why, how can the girls go through this? And they ask themselves, am I ready for this? But I think they also should be wondering what their baby, what they conceived is a gift from God. And I think nothing else besides life can bring you closer to God than what He just gave you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's a quote from Mother Teresa that says, how can people say there are too many babies? That's like saying there are too many flowers.
Yeah. Powell, before you were talking about how many babies were aborted from 1970, how many were there again?
42 million.
42 million, yeah.
Over 42 million.
That's really disturbing.
Yeah, 3,000 a day, over 3,000 a day.
Who knows how many special people could have been in those 42 million? Everyone would have been special.
Yeah.
You could have had the person who invented the cure for cancer, or the person who would have been the next pope. It's saddening. It's like the greatest loss of life that the world has ever seen. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, it's like the Holocaust. It's like the biggest Holocaust we ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most difficult parts of being a teenager and being pregnant is probably being embarrassed and ashamed. and just not being sure how to tell your mom or dad, or whether you even want to tell them at all.
Next, we will meet two moms, Linda and Eileen. Their daughters found themselves in a crisis pregnancy. One told her mother she was pregnant and the other didn't.
Let's hear their stories now.
My first reaction was that she was suffering and I needed to help her. I couldn't believe that she was allowed to have an abortion without my knowledge, and she was severely depressed, and I knew I had to intervene, so my first concern was her well-being. When she became severely depressed, we thought that her boyfriend, who we disapproved of, had introduced her to drugs, but instead of finding drugs in her room when we searched it, we found a questionnaire from the abortion clinic that she forgot to mail back. As a result of that abortion, she became depressed, was hospitalized, and during her hospitalization, it was discovered that she had an incomplete abortion. The abortionist had left placenta, and my daughter could not have the surgery to repair the damage done by the abortionist until I signed a consent form to repair that damage. So I was very outraged after I knew that she was getting the best care she could to realize that how could my daughter have an abortion without my knowledge, but yet to repair the damage done by the abortionist, I had to sign a consent form.
Yeah, well, when my daughter came to me, she was just 15 years of age. And I know it was very, very hard for her because she was actually pregnant from a guy that we were not allowing her to go out with because of the age difference. And so she was scared. She was a scared young girl. The first thing I wanted to do was to reassure her that, not that it was okay, because it wasn't okay, but just to let her know that I loved her and that her dad loved her. And I did let her know that I was going to go call her dad right away. But I knew that what I was dealing with was my daughter and that she needed to have her mom's support. But she knew she was supported by us. And also, the father of the baby wanted to be with her. They wanted the baby. They wanted things to work out. We brought in the boy's mother, and we all sat down and talked together with him, and so we were able to work this out together. And I know that's not always what happens, but in our situation, for the sake of our kids and for the sake of the baby, we made ourselves get along. And I'm going to tell you what, she was just as scared as I was. And I had to tell myself that I knew that. Regardless of what they think is going to happen, they still should go to their mother or their father or their parents. They still should tell. I think they need to go by themselves. Don't bring the boy with them. Go by themselves and tell their mom, I'm pregnant. Parents, if they're together, and just tell them, I'm sorry, but I'm pregnant. And then let the parents have their time to react and then accept. Give them time to accept. But I always like to let the teens know that if their parents react badly, that they don't have to have an abortion, because so many teens think that they have to. So I always like to let them know that they do not have to. If their parent says you have to, they do not.
When my daughter returned back to high school after she was hospitalized for depression, some of the young girls in high school came to her and said, you were pregnant, you were maybe afraid to tell your mother, what would you advise me? And my daughter simply said to her, go and tell your mom, because she's the one who loves you the most and can put her arms around you and say, I love you, we can work this through together.
I can't even imagine how overwhelming it is to be a teenager and to be pregnant, but I know that I would go to my mother or to my parents, and even if they weren't supportive of my decision to keep the baby, I know that that's right in my heart and that's what God would want as well. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, if I ever got a girl pregnant out of wedlock, God forbid, I'd be upset and I'd be scared, but I would accept my mistake, and I realize that, I might not see it like it is now, but it is a gift from God, the baby, and that I'm gonna have to nurture it and love it because I'm its father. And, I would go to my parents, I would tell them, I would sit them down, tell them I made a mistake, but I want to be a man, and I want to be responsible for my actions. And if I was mature enough to have sexual intercourse with the woman, I'm mature enough to raise the baby. And if she wanted to get an abortion, I would do everything I possibly can to prevent her from doing that.
What do you guys think you would do if you had a friend who was in a crisis pregnancy? How would you advise them?
Don't have an abortion,
I think, I'm sorry, keep going.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I think that I would tell them, that God blessed you with this child for one reason or another, and to tell them to really sit down and think about whether or not they want to keep this child as their own or put it up for adoption, because either way it's going to be a blessing. Either it's going to help them one way or another, or give them strength and be a joy in their life, or let the child be a joy in someone else's life and bless a family who can't have their own children, but not take the life away, because then nobody gets to feel the blessing, this gift from God.
Exactly.
I'd definitely tell them and tell their parents and not have an abortion, because there are so many physical as well as, you know, emotional and mental responses to when you have an abortion. You know, like your cervix isn't as good as it should be, especially if it's first pregnancy. You have more tendency towards breast cancer and other female organ cancer. And I think it's just horrible, like what abortion actually does to women. And people refuse to see that because it's politically incorrect to say that abortion is wrong, but it really is.
I know, oh, go ahead, Bruce.
Well, I think the best thing a person can do is lean on their faith. I think their faith will take them so far, and it will teach them the right answer. And I think another thing that they should do is that they shouldn't be insecure about telling their parents. Because when I saw that, I was like amazed at how their mothers reacted. And I think either way, in the end, it's just going to end up being the right way to keep the baby.
Yeah, and you should also support your friend. You know, if she doesn't have an abortion and she has to raise the baby, then, you know, just help her out.
Be there to help her in any way possible.
That video was really moving, and I think it really shows how precious every child, every life is. And he says the miracle starts with the beat of the heart. I think it starts way before that, when there's a potential for a child to grow in someone, when God makes that miracle happen, the miracle of life happen. That's when, you know, things begin, the miracle begins, and it's God's miracle, and it produces beautiful children like you saw in the video, and there's always love to take them in.
And it shows that there is an alternative to abortion too. You know, you have an adoption, and you know, you put the baby up for adoption, and she can finding like a wonderful family, and you know, at least give the baby a chance.
You have to give the baby a chance, because I was adopted, and I got adopted into a family that loves me and really cares about me, and that's the greatest gift I can ever get. And you have to give every baby a chance to find that family, because if that baby's a part of you, and if you love yourself, you would love the baby to find what's best for them.
And I really liked the personal touch in the video, because one of the little girls that kept on showing, he actually adopted, and that's who you saw walking at the end. It was like him and his wife and a little girl, and that's why he wrote the song. I think that's so cool, because it really came from the heart.
Abortion shouldn't be looked at as a political issue or just a project.
It shouldn't be just about changing the law. It is about standing up to protect human life and protecting the innocent.
Does a human being have less rights simply because it's unborn?
Log on to our website for more information on the abortion debate and give us your feedback.
Links to related websites, articles, and information on healing after abortion will be posted on our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or call us at area code 609-406-7402.
Remember, as Christians, we have a responsibility to promote and protect human life.
Check out what it says in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Human life is sacred because from its beginning, it involves the creative actions of God, and it remains forever in a special relationship with the Creator, who is its sole end.
God alone is the Lord of life, from its beginning until its end. No one can, under any circumstance, claim for himself the right to destroy an innocent human being.
So pray that God will touch all of our hearts so that we may not only value, but stand up to protect even the tiniest of human lives.
Thanks for joining us today. We will see you next time on Real Faith TV.
God bless.
I agreed to have an abortion. He, of course, canceled out and didn't want to go with me. It was a bad day for him. And I left, and when I left, I felt very relieved. Like that that there was no more decisions to make. Got home.
Your life is normal again, right?
Yeah, so I thought. So I pretty much just went to work, came home, and would go into my room and cry, and write in a journal, and just happened to be in church and read about Rachel's Vineyard retreats, Took me like a month or two to get up the courage to even call to find out what they were. So I called and I got the hotline. She spoke to me, Mary Alice spoke to me for about 45 minutes, and you know, of course I cried, told her my whole story. And she said, well, there's a retreat coming up. So I went on the retreat, and it was the first time that I ever learned that God could love me no matter what, you know, that I did a horrible thing and I'm sorry for it and he's sorry for it and my daughter is sorry for it, but that she could forgive me and he could forgive me. And I was like, but how can I ever forgive myself for that? Like, I knew it was wrong before I did it. It was just a weekend to free myself that I was able to learn how to deal. It wasn't like I walked out of there on Sunday and was completely free of everything. But at least I knew there was a road I could go on now, that I could find myself again. And I continued in, like in Rachel's Vineyards, they have follow-up support groups where they work on the issues that got you into abortion. Premarital sex, relationships and not being in a good relationship, communication, all the things that led up to me not being able to say, this isn't what I want. So I was really able to find comfort in that and comfort in the fact that my daughter was all right, she was in heaven, and that God didn't turn her away from heaven because of what I did. And that was a real comfort, just knowing that I would see her again when I died. There is hope. That the one thing I can tell them is that even though the pregnancy is not going to be easy, I'll be the first to admit that I see that every day of how these young women struggle and are alone and scared, but there's joy. You know, they go to the doctors, they get an ultrasound, and they come home smiling, and there is people out there, even if their family turns away from them, if the baby's father turns away, there's always, God's never going to leave them totally alone.